Scott Walker, governor of Wisconsin, is finally ready to send his save the date card. The Wisconsin governor filed papers to run for president with the FEC today. He's preparing to make the announcement on July 13th. Walker has already been campaigning for months. He's gained popularity after stealing the show at the Iowa Faith and Freedom Summit. Walker made a hard right turn to impress Hawkeye State voters. The move could weaken support from moderate voters elsewhere. He puts himself, I think, in a pretty dangerous spot at this point. He's gambling. Walker's early lead in Iowa is already running out of steam. Support has dropped from 25% in February down to 18%, according to the latest Quinnipiac poll. President Obama traveled to La Crosse, Wisconsin today, where Walker greeted him at the airport. Now, there's a picture you don't see very often. Under the president's leadership, the United States added 223,000 jobs to the economy. The employment rate dropped to a 7-year low to 5.3%. Scott Walker, of course, didn't add to those numbers. In his first term, Walker failed to return his state to pre-recession employment levels while the United States surpassed pre-recession levels. The question is Walker has failed to perform when it comes to job creation? Sooner or later, Republican opponents are going to start talking about it, because the competition is definitely there. Joining me tonight, John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine. Also with us, Genevieve Wood, senior contributor with The Daily Signal. Genevieve, you first tonight. What do you make of this slip by Walker in the polls? And has he gone too far to the right? There's some political folks out there that say that, you know what, he may have overstepped his boundaries with a lot of voters. What do you think?
Well, I mean, talking about the polls, look, he's not officially declared yet. A number of other people have been declaring over the past several weeks, and we've seen all of them, Jeb Bush included, get a nice little bump when they actually make the official declaration. Likely that Scott Walker may get the same thing. He's doing well in Iowa. He's been doing well in Iowa for a long time. And look, I think if you look at Scott Walker's piece in Real Clear Politics today, he debunks a lot of what you just said about all the good stuff under the Obama economy and actually takes credit for a lot of good things that have happened in Wisconsin. And as I think I've said, Ed, on your show before, Scott Walker has done what he's needed to do in Wisconsin, being elected 3 times in 4 years. So whatever the polls may say, the voters, when given the opportunity to either be for or against Scott Walker, have been for him.
But the fact is, Wisconsin ranks 38th in job creation. How does Walker defend his poor record on job creation and also the battle that he's having right now with Republicans from his own party in the state on how to deal with the budget? John Nichols, how does that play out?
Well, it's inconvenient. The Walker for President campaign is the worst kept secret in American politics. He's essentially been running for more than a year, and pretty aggressively so. That's taken him out of Wisconsin a great deal. And one of the complaints you hear from Democratic and some Republican legislators is that he hasn't paid enough attention to the budget process. That's why it has been something of a mess. But beyond that, I think that one of the real challenges that Walker faces in Wisconsin and potentially on the national campaign trail is that over time, Wisconsinites have come to recognize that what he's doing is not working. In the most recent Marquette Law School poll, the disapproval rating for Scott Walker was as high as it's been, up at 55%. And paired against any of the Republican candidates, Scott Walker lost Wisconsin in what is generally thought of as the best poll of Wisconsinites.
Genevieve,
I'll just make the argument again, Ed, that the polls that matter are the ones that happen on Election Day. And nobody's had a tougher time than Scott Walker in terms of money coming from outside of state, the unions giving it everything they had to defeat this guy.
Well, now, wait a minute,
none of them were successful.
Let's get the facts right here. When there was a recall election, he got more outstate money than his opponent, Mr. Barrett, the mayor of Milwaukee. In fact, he outfunded him 7-1 and actually ran against the recall. I don't dispute what you're saying. The guy knows how to win elections. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and
but
the people of Wisconsin have voted for him.
There's some things that are following him that aren't good. Number one, he's got bad job numbers. And number two, he's in a fight with his own party right now on what to do with the budget. Doesn't that look bad? I mean, he can't get on the same page with his own party. What about that?
Well, I don't think that just because you have a Republican Congress at the state level or the federal level, for that matter, that they're all as fiscally responsible as they ought to be. And I think Governor Walker is more fiscally responsible than many in his own state house. And look, when he came into office, the state of Wisconsin was in deficits. They now actually have a budget surplus. So again, I think if you look at all the facts on the ground and the voters there have done that, he does well. But look, he's going to have to stand up that record against Governor Rick Perry of Texas, who has great stories out to tell there. Governor John Kasich of Ohio, who's likely to declare later this month, he's going to have good stories to tell. So he's in a strong field to be for sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, among Republicans, I mean, he's as good as any of them, I guess you could say. But does Wisconsin have a surplus, John Nichols?
Well, that's not what the independent auditors say. The independent auditors say that Wisconsin is looking at a shortfall in the range of $2 billion. That number has obviously moved a great deal. But the thing to understand is that one of the reasons this current budget process has been so very, very difficult, really quite a mess, is because the revenues aren't what Scott Walker or others would like them to be. And so the notion that there's a Scott Walker success story in Wisconsin is certainly not accepted by a lot of Wisconsinites. And I suspect that as this campaign gets going, you will hear many of the governor's Republican challengers or opponents bring up the fact that Wisconsin's numbers are not nearly as good as a lot of other states in the country.
Okay. And Genevieve, you're a Walker fan, it sounds like.
I'm a Walker fan among a lot of other fans. I think he does have a good record. I think he's been tough on the unions, which as has Chris Christie and others. So look, I think there's a lot of things he's doing the right way that a lot of people, even though maybe you aren't going to vote for him, there are a lot of people I think who are going to give him a first and second look.
I want to see if Scott Walker can draw 10,000 fans anywhere in Wisconsin. Pick the Republican stronghold and have at it. I'd like to see that.
Bernie,
Great to have both of you with us tonight.
Thank you.